Now let's roll for it. Take a stroll with me. Let's get it. So casually, then I'm freaking down, yes, them streets. Cause the fam gotta eat, no question, no eyes. Bank it out, non seeing or seeing the mind. See the MCs on here ain't built like me. They ain't understand the code for the streets.
Oh man, I forgot I told you guys. This place right here is the first place I lived at. This place on the corner, right here. I lived in the basement. I just turned 18. And right down there, there's steps that go down. I don't know if it's a basement apartment anymore. I lived there with my boy Ryan. Cardi went to school at West Toronto down the street. I don't think it's called West Toronto anymore. The landlord at the time, she was a real slumlord. I didn't know what I was getting into. I just wanted to be in the city on a subway line. And this was the first place that came up. It was super cheap. And up above there was a crack house. A lot of the people used to come and smoke in the stairwell or shoot up in the stairwell.
Sun up to sundown. My life, my ups and downs. Yeah, this year been a hard one. Resilience the name, people how I ball.
I think just out of my relationship with you, we've talked about the evolution of the rap names.
The rap name. My first MC name was Young Islam. That's kind of how I came to trying to figure out where I belonged. Hip hop, late 80s, had a very strong Afrocentric component. And part of that Afrocentric or Pan-African component was some type of synergy with an Islamic identities. So there was rhetoric, there was terminology, things that I was picking up in the music that just drew me to it. And when I fashioned this idea that I wanted to MC, that was the first thing I thought of calling myself.
And we all know how the game is played. The hustle you know and live every day. They say things change, it don't seem that way. What can you do but keep grinding? We all know how the game is played. The hustle you know and live every day. They say things change, it don't seem that way. What can you do but keep grinding?
Most of my friends were West Indian, a lot of them were Jamaican. People would just refer to me as Coolie. Not in a pejorative way. I think it was more of a controversial thing in Guyana and Trinidad, but Jamaicans were kind of saying it in an endearing way. And I adopted that name as kind of a nickname. I remember we performed at a big pre-Caravana show, and I remember letting everybody know what my MC name was when I was on the mic over and over and over again. And an elderly Trinidadian, I think, he was like, you know, everything was cool except for your nickname. There's a lot of history that comes with that nickname. It's akin to being called any racial epithet in certain places. Didn't realize how much history the name had. You know, I always remember that elderly man speaking to me. You know, I don't want to make people feel bad. I mean, it is hip hop. You reappropriate things and you use it in certain ways. And even if that elderly man didn't understand what it meant to be a hip hop head or what it meant to, you know, fuse language and invert it in that way, at the same time, I didn't want to have to explain that to people either. So I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to turn the name backwards because I spelled it Cooly. And then I flipped it backwards and changed the C to a K. There was never any really standard convention. I never spelled it with a dash, but records that I was on, they just assumed that that's how I spelled it. They never bothered to ask. I always liked the fact that it puzzled people. They wanted to know how to recite the name. So I just spelled it Y, capital L, O, OK, sometimes capital Y. Lowercase L, O, okay. Me being heavy into books, I started intellectualizing it. I was saying, well, it's just kind of my thing about identity and the ego and why I look, but that was never really part of it. I was just lazy and I flipped it backwards. I wasn't branding myself. I never really overthought it. I thought it was just a cool flip. I liked playing with people's ideas about the name. I liked the fact that I could improvise and make it what I wanted to be, and I thought that was a very hip-hop thing to do, to be evasive, to be in the shadows, to not be bound by something that would be tangible and marketable or all the other things.
Listen, you can have the fly cars, the dopest kicks, the fly gear, the dopest house, everything that you can imagine. But there's always that one thing, that one bit of randomness that could be missing. That one thing that keeps you on your toes, keeps you wanting more, keeps you intrigued, keeps your mind open and blown. And that one thing, that definite thing, popcorn and pineapples, baby. Hashtag that.
You know, my position or role in this community, it's never something I've ever articulated. I have no need for people to remember me. I don't care about legacy or anything like that. I think my friends did important work. And I loved growing up that way. I loved being in that community. I loved thinking about it. I love participating in it to this day in whatever small, minor way I can. I love the fact that you can come across somebody you vaguely remember and the more you dig or the more you have a conversation with somebody about somebody, those memories start to trickle back and meaning is built around that individual or that community or that whatever. And then you realize how important that is to the foundation of everything that's happening. Is there a direct relationship to that and Drake becoming a billionaire? No, I don't know. But to deny that history is bad historical work then. To say that the only important history to discuss is the history of a bunch of rappers who put out records and sold to the units. That's not good history from an intellectual perspective. That's meaningless. That's popular history. That's market-oriented history. That's pop history, and that's not real history. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the stories that people are forgetting about. I used to feel Toronto was very provincial because you would listen to a Snoop record, and on every record he would reinterpret a record. Like on the first record it was the Slicker, and you're like, yo, the guy's ahead. You ask these guys about their records and they go through this list because New York is the mecca, the heart of the culture, and these guys are students of the culture. And that was pretty much no matter where you went, regardless of the style they were emceeing in or how they dressed or how they looked or what they were representing. There was a period where these guys were hip-hop heads, and I was like, why are we so close-minded up here? It was a strange time. Other cats could break through, but they had to kind of sound East Coast. You couldn't really sound West Coast and get much love in Toronto. And I don't think anybody out there really cared about what Toronto was feeling or not. From a head's perspective, I felt like it was a very close-minded community at one point. In this neighborhood in '96, it was hectic. Oh man, there were so many self-identified gangs. Around here, you would run into the Christie Boys or Tiny Toons who were affiliated with the Crips. It was a trifling neighborhood, but at the same time, it was so organic. I loved it. It was just alive. You know, it was real people, real working people, working hard. It was a really interesting place to experience being on my own for the first time.